Welcome to News from the Pew, where we bring all the stories that scare you out of your mind from around the interwebs and distill it to make it slightly less frightening. I am your host, Rick Barrett, and I am joined as always by my colleague Stephen Cunningham of Census Fidelium, censusfidelium.tv, and all that fun stuff. And go by his calendar. I'm sure he'll put a link to it in the show notes.
Zazzle took it down again.
Well, when he does it, buy it soon, so that way when they take it down for the nighttime, or maybe go on Etsy. I don't know, do something else. But when it's up, I'll make sure to promote it even more. But Stephen Cunningham has joined us. And also, Mr. Fawaz Yazi has joined us as well. Make sure you follow him on his YouTube channel, Enoch, and on his Instagram page as well. He keeps promoting Catholic artists and Catholic causes. And last night he had Foundation Fam, which was a great interview with them, to listen to them talk about it. And I can be very happy to say that I am still the lowest rated interview or lowest viewed interview of his series. I'm such a narcissist, I have to say it. So, yeah, if we're going to be bad at something, you're going to do something, go all the way, right? Anyway, that's so follow him on YouTube and Instagram for all his great content as well. Let's get right into it, gentlemen. I know Fawaz had a good Thanksgiving. Steve did not, but we'll get to the first story of the show, which is Elon Musk. Elon Musk is everywhere right now because everybody is just so in love with him because he's supposedly returning free speech to Twitter, which we can talk about the ethics of actual free speech if we want. But not all as well, and I think we all need to pump the brakes when it comes to working with or praising Elon Musk. And I know Steve's got our first video for us.
And we've been working hard to be ready for our first human, and obviously we want to be extremely careful and certain that it will work well before putting a device in a human. But we've submitted, I think, most of our paperwork to the FDA, and we think probably in about 6 months we should be able to have our first Neuralink in a human. So. Now this video is now 18 months old. So this is Pager, who is playing monkey mind pong. So this is Pager has a Neuralink implant in this video, and the thing that's interesting is that you can't even see the neural implant. So we've miniaturized the neural implant to the point where it matches the thickness of the skull that is removed. So it's essentially it's sort of like having an Apple Watch or a Fitbit, replacing a piece of skull with like a smartwatch, for lack of a better analogy. So you can see, he looks pretty, he's normal. And I think that's pretty important. If you have a Neuralink device, like I could have a Neuralink device implanted right now, and you wouldn't, you wouldn't even know. I mean, hypothetically, maybe one of these demos, in fact, one of these demos I will. The first two applications we're going to aim for in humans are restoring vision, and I think this is like notable in that even if someone has never had vision ever, like they were born blind, we believe we can still restore vision. Because the visual part of the cortex is still there. Yeah, even if they've never seen before, we're confident that they could see. And then the other application being in the motor cortex, where we would initially enable someone who has no ability, almost no ability to operate their muscles, sort of like a sort of Stephen Hawking type situation, and enable them to operate their phone faster than someone who has working hands. But then obviously even better than that would be to bridge the connection. Take the signals from the motor cortex and let's say somebody's got a broken neck, then bridging those signals to Neuralink devices located in the spinal cord. So we're confident there are no physical limitations to enabling full body functionality.
Nerd.
I mean, as miraculous as it may sound, we're confident that it is possible to restore full body functionality to someone who has a severed spinal cord. So, yeah.
Here's my summation. Elon Musk is playing God. And that's the transhumanist agenda. And he thinks that his company Neuralink will be ready to do implants, brain chip implants into human patients within 6 months of now. So yes, yay, Twitter is a thing again and everybody loves it. Be careful, man. The guy is a slave to the transhumanist agenda. We'll go to Fawaz first. Fawaz, thoughts on what you just saw and Elon Musk's further plans down the road for more technology-based transhumanism type of things.
Yeah, thanks for good to be back. Missed you guys. Yeah, you said it best, Rick. The problem that I have with Elon is like everybody else who likes to get their foot in the door. He's got a Trojan horse for the left and a Trojan horse for the right, and they speak from both sides of their mouths because that's what modernists do. In order for them to get the trust and the welcome from both sides. It's funny because I remember if you look back the history of what we call anti-jabs, the left used to be anti-jab, and when COVID came out, the right became anti-jab, and because the right became anti-jab, now the left became anti-jab, and it's just further dividing all of us. And then you said it best. The problem that I have with Elon is he'll say something, and then the right, so-called conservatives, will say, "Yay, Elon's on our side," and then he'll do something like this, who wants to put a chip in our brain and pretty much, play God. And then the right all of a sudden thinks, "Well, we're just going to sweep that under the rug because Twitter." And this is the problem. This is the Trojan horses that they put in order to get in the door and to gain trust from both sides. Trump did the same thing with the conservatives, and they all do. All politicians, all billionaires, all those who have an agenda. Ultimately, all of them have one agenda, and the agenda is to make this world unnatural as possible because that is the counterfeit church that we who is restoring or building. The counterfeit church is everything that is unnatural. The fat is beautiful. Man is woman. Transhuman is more human than actual human. We no longer need this God anymore, the scriptures anymore. Morality doesn't exist. Food is not food anymore unless we've created it in a lab. All of these things are called the unnatural sciences, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to create an unnatural world, which is going to be the newfound religion. And I think they're really trying to push us now. Two things: either number one, all of these multi-billionaires who have this agenda are getting really old and they know their time is up here on Earth because no matter what Neuralink wants to do, you can't escape death. You will die one day. Either they're pushing this because they want to see the labors of their fruit, or we know who's behind this. Ultimately, we all know what demons are capable of. We just have to wait and see how human beings respond to that evil. My estimation here is I think that the enemy knows that something's coming up. His time is running short, so he's pushing this a lot harder and a lot faster. Because they're talking about 2028 and 2030, which is going to be the two big dates coming up. That's short years to try to push this. When you push something like that hard, you might gain some success, but ultimately you're going to fail. But the question here is for Christians is what do we do in the meanwhile? Well, there's not much you can do other than the fact that you can ask God if he had decreed it from the very beginning of time to stop this from happening, or if he decreed it from the very beginning of time that he's going to allow us to be handed to our enemies for the sake of our sanctification, because that's how he sees it fit. You can either ask God to end it, or you can ask God to be sanctified through it. Looking at history, what the Christians have gone through, I don't think anything like this, to be honest with you. But looking at history, whether it be Elon Musk or Schwab or Gates or any of those guys, I think it's best for us to get on our knees and ask our Lord to sanctify us through this moment of suffering. And what my fear is, and of course, this is ultimately in the hands of God, is what kind of world will my kids grow up in? And when I'm gone, what will be their world? They could be living through the time of peace for all we know, and that would be great. But as of right now, whether Elon Musk takes over Twitter or puts chips in our brains, the best thing to do, because the ends don't justify the means. From what he's trying to do, he's trying to help people see, but you're doing it in the means are evil, so the ends don't justify them. So that's my thing as a Christian, as a Catholic, is just keep on doing what you're doing until the wheels fall off, I guess.
It's a great point you bring up. It's a great point you bring up, Waz. And I think it's something I didn't catch, but I when listening to you, Steve, the whole point was to take away, people from suffering, this, that, and the other thing. When we're taught here in this life that it is suffering, that we are to endure the sufferings. We just ended the month of November, which we should be learning that our sufferings can be used to help free our brothers and sisters in purgatory through our wants and offering it up to them. And it's this restriction or this removal of pain and this removal of struggle to make us, like Fwa said, fat, lazy, and more willing to give in to sloth and all the sins that we have to fight day in and day out, whichever one's yours, whatever vices yours are. And the promotion of this, Steve, is part of that whole agenda, the reset, however you want to call it.
I'll bring up a video from the Blast of the Past I did with Michael Lofton about 2 years ago, end of 2020.
This talks about at the bottom underneath the video, AI and reason.
I eventually hit play right here. Oh, it's not working right now?
They know, Steve. They know.
Oh man, there's two Steves.
Man, now we're in that Spaceballs movie where there's like 5 Steves down the camera.
Unlocks the black box of this brain, enables us to really truly be able to realize an identity that is aspirational. And they bring up in here virtual reality. Was it AR? I think it was. Yeah, AR. I forget what AR.
Actual reality. Come on, you idiot.
VR was the main one.
If only he knew back then. If only he knew.
Stop me if you ever heard this one.
Let me shut myself up real quick.
New ways of communicating.
There's a point to this.
We know.
Sound familiar?
You don't need to take over the world to do that. One of the things that I think
It's not. I'll leave it in the show notes. For some reason, it's screwed up.
Here's the kicker.
You're messing with the powers that be, man. They can't let you know.
Rick interrupted her. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't.
Michael is definitely listening.
He didn't have a choice.
If it starts working, this technology starts working.
Well, it happens.
Maybe.
Shout out to Michael Lofton.
That's right. You should check out his interview with Fwaz. It's really good on his on his YouTube channel. Very interesting.
So what they're going at it is this is the fourth industrial revolution. the intro video. Okay. And I tried looking it up. I can't find it. The only way I found it was putting up on this, putting it up on,
robots do some great work.
putting it up on the site and watching through the replay of the video from 2 years ago. And I don't know why it's not working. Anyway, what they said is the last version we have is the being able to get into your thoughts, freedom of thought. So it's not working. Remember, this is if you wonder what is technocracy. Here's the link from Corbett's show because it goes into exactly what it is and what it's not. If you have any idea who Patrick Wood is, he wrote the book Technocracy Rising. It's basically it's communism in a technological level, if you want to think that way. And so that's what the biocheck, that's what the CBDCs, the social credit scores, everything I've been yelling about for the last couple of years, and mainly a lot of others too. It's all coming into this. China is basically a technocratic country right now, technocratic state. We'll get into that later. But get back to Elon, as he says, he's a technocratic huckster. He is for universal basic income. Why? Because he's got the robots so that when you're not working anymore, how are you going to get paid? And so you're not going to work anymore. You're not going to own anything. Where did we hear that from?
Third thing I will point to is a very big move that's happening at the moment from product to service. I have a friend,
So this is the lady that coined the phrase, you will own nothing and be happy.
he says every product is a service waiting to happen.
So you're not going to own anything. Everything's going to be a service. Think of Uber, think of Lyft, think of just renting out things, Airbnb. You're not going to own anything. You're going to use these products for service. There was a guy the other day I talked about in New York City. Yeah, New York City, that there's no cabs. It's just Uber. You have to have a cell phone to be able to use Uber. You have to have an app. You have to have this. You just can't walk in the street and go, hey, yo, taxi anymore. You have to be connected to the, basically this was the Internet of Things, eventually the Internet of Bodies, which is the thing going in your chips in your head. Funny, that's conspiracy theory until it becomes freaking real. And we'll get more to that because you got killer robots going on in San Francisco.
If you think about it, I mean, your cell phone, why do you want to own your cell phone? How many of you own your cell phones? How many knows if the company owns it? It's actually not a lot. I mean, you want the function, you want the service, right? Why do you want to own a cell phone if
this is back in the day when you could lease your cell phone, and then after 2 years you could get a new one. So they're already training you, just like Apple Pay. Where did we hear that from? With Kanye or Ye or whatever, the artist formerly known as Kanye, whatever. There's no currency anymore. There's no dollar. Apple, who's basically now a Chinese shield, and everyone knew that. You can have slave labor over there, but hey, it's just like slave labor with EVs. That's okay, but don't talk about anything going on over here.
you can just lease it? And if you lease, why shouldn't you lease your refrigerator or your washing machine or your dishwasher? Or why do you want to own it?
So, and then here's our article. If you ever seen this, let me get back to over here. Now I did pull it up on the Wayback Machine. It's just Forbes has it. Welcome to 2030. I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never been better. Again, this is from 2016.
I mean, look how happy they are, though.
What?
They look so happy.
And Fawaz brought up this point here. He goes, what do we do? And she brings it up. My biggest concern is all the people who do not live in our city. Those we lost on the way. Us. Those who decided that it became too much, all this technology. Those who felt obsolete and useless when robots and AI took over big parts of our jobs. Think about this in 2016. You're going, what is she talking about? Think about it in 2022. Those who got upset with the political system and turned against it, what do you see now? They live different kinds of lives outside of the city. Some have formed little self-supplying communities. Others just stayed in the empty and abandoned houses in small 19th century villages. Wow, what would you think like that? Because if you don't have your social credit score up to par, guess what you're not getting? Electricity. You're not driving. You're not doing the things you're used to doing. You're not getting online to watch your shows. If you like Sense of Fidelity, ain't happening anymore. You like Dr. Marsh, ain't happening. You like name your group. It isn't going to happen if you don't have your social credit score. Look at China. They're locking down people right now just because you can't access. They're keeping people in their homes. You think they're allowed to access the internet? No, they got rid of what was it? Not Facebook Marketplace, but Facebook
Apple AirDrop.
AirDrop. They turned it off so you can't communicate. That's why I got a CB right there. So if a CB goes down, I need to get an antenna. I can still communicate with the outside world because you can't use this if you don't get approved. Oh, I'm sorry. Your social credit score is not up to par. You click like on a Facebook post where we'll get into that because somebody got arrested in Louisiana over a Facebook post on the Rona. So guys, you think, oh, Steve's a wackadoo. Prove me wrong. I would love to be proven to be in a nut house. I will go voluntarily and check myself in. But so far, all this stuff is going really, there's a reason why Clown Plan. I haven't done it in a while because YouTube's kicked me off for a couple weeks. So anybody's been asking, I've seen a couple people ask me about that. This is really happening. Here's the article. Here's part of it right here. When AI and robots took over much of our world, we suddenly had time to eat well, sleep well, and spend time with other people. The concept of rush hour makes no sense anymore, since the work we can do can be done at any time. I don't know. I really don't know if I could call it work anymore. Think about the Twitter and the Twitter company. That's literally that. Right? They don't do anything. They just check in. And where was it that movie with Bruce Willis when his robot self goes out of the room?
Oh, The Fifth Element.
Yeah, it does its own. You stay at home. Everything else is just AI. They're literally talking about having.
Well, remember who was that guy? The guy who ran in the Democratic Party. He, the math guy. I forgot who his name was. His whole thing was UBI because of automation.
Oh yeah,
he was promoting that in the election.
Andrew Yang.
Yes, Andrew Yang.
Right.
They're literally talking about having to be in the metaverse to order food, do any kind of transaction, do everything you're using on your little dumb phone right now. They're moving it into the metaverse, so you have to have VR down the road to be able to access any of this stuff down there. That again goes back to what she has said. How many people we lost along the way? There's going to be a lot of us lost along the way because of that. There's the video from the Pentopolis back in 2012 when it talks about her sister that didn't want to move in. They live outside the city. What we've talked about many times. You have EV cars going to be in the city. You think they're going to put chargers in, BF areas of your state? No, they're not. The rural areas are not going to be part of the program. You need to be in the cities for these guys to do it. That's why part of it is kind of like convert the cities or get out of the cities. I know like the Desert Fathers talk about that in the Philokalia. Get out of the towns, get out of the cities, live on your own, kind of like Fawaz is doing with no one around. So you're because away from the noise and things like that. The cities have gone really off the charts. Yes, if you're living in there, you better start working on converting that area and getting people like-minded into your city councils and things like this, because this stuff's coming to that's coming in Charlotte. If I lived in Charlotte, I'd be getting out of Charlotte, or getting somebody in there to run for Charlotte, myself, anybody to change it. Now, someone could argue like one priest did about the rosary sermon. Our Lady came down to Fatima and said, pray the rosary. She didn't say go and running for politics. I get that. Doing for office or anything like that. Simple. We get down, start getting some calluses on our knees first. We could change the world. Also, we could do some other things, but that's not voting harder and running is not the number one priority. Number one priority is getting holy so that we can combat this. You read these church fathers and doctors and the Desert Fathers, you'll be blown away. Everyone's been writing me about the Father Abernathy series going, where has this been all my life? I'm with them. It's mind-blowingly great. And turns your focus off the material world and puts it in the spiritual going, you know what, they can come at me all kinds of things. We need to do this and you can change society because these guys, there's one guy, one brought up, during the Babylonian captivity, you would think that everyone was all upset and not getting anything. Jeremiah was served by the enemies anything he wanted because he showed holiness. And one church, there's a father says, you can have all the money in the world. The holiness is what people gravitate to. They don't care about the fame and fortune of these XYZ people. It's the name that the holy people get their names in the people's minds for time and eternity. And these people, and it shows examples, people serving whatever you want. The enemy was given because they recognize his holiness. Imagine if a ton of us become that level. And if anybody says, I'm already at that level, you're lying to yourself. But anyway, back to this. This is coming. You better start getting your mind ready and prepared for all this. Because, I mean, again, killer robots, own nothing, be happy, UBI, CBDC, it's already in the works. You're getting already used to it. Apple Pay, paying on your phone, PayPal, all that stuff. How many people transact with a dollar bill anymore? Eventually, you're not going to be able to pay for gas because you've posted a tweet or a Facebook post, and they're not going to like it, and your social credit score goes down. Again, see China. Do you want me to play the Chinese thing from Tucker? You're muted. You're muted.
Great Trump impression too for you. Yes, let's move on to. Let's go to China, where they're doing some really bad things.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Night. Happy Tuesday. Unless you read the Daily Mail, which is an English paper published online, you probably didn't know that Chinese President Xi Jinping sent tanks into a major city last night in order to put down protests against his rule. Virtually no American media outlets even acknowledged that that happened. And that's pretty weird if you think about it. Imagine, for example, that Hungarian leader Viktor Orban put tanks into Budapest to crush his political opponents. Would our media notice? Oh, yeah, they would. It'd be on the front page of the New York Times. Morning Joe would lead with it. And keep in mind that Hungary is a very small country. It's got a GDP smaller than South Dakota's. China, by profound contrast, has the biggest economy in the world. China's our main global rival. It's a highly significant place. And yet somehow, no one in any newsroom in America noticed when Xi Jinping decided to replay Tiananmen Square. They just didn't see it, even though the pictures were on the internet. How's that possible? Could it be that the American news media is covering for the government of China? You can't say, well, let's make the call on that. We can say, we know for a fact that Apple is covering for the government of China. Apple is the most valuable company in the world. It's got a current market cap of trillions of dollars. Financial listings describe Apple as an American company. You can see why they do. Apple is headquartered in the United States. It was founded by Americans. To this day, it's run by an American citizen. But those facts don't tell the story. In fact, at this point, Apple is in no sense American. Apple's loyalty is to the government of China. And if you think that's an overstatement, consider this. Earlier this month, Apple did the bidding of the Chinese government to crush domestic protests against the Communist Party there. Apple did this by disabling its permanent airdrop feature in China, and so far only in China. It's the only country in which it's disabled. So why did Apple disable that feature in China? Well, because that feature, permanent airdrop, allows iPhone users to communicate directly with one another without using the internet or cellular networks, both of which, in a totalitarian state like China, are controlled by the government. And that means that without permanent airdrop, it's effectively impossible for freedom-minded citizens to organize with one another. They're powerless. Apple, of course, knows this. And that's why when iPhone users in China began using permanent airdrop to complain about the Communist Party, Apple just shut it down. In other words, and again, this is not an overstatement, Apple is now an active collaborator with China's murderous police state. When tanks roll into a Chinese city, Apple is rooting for the tanks. Well, for a company based outside San Jose, this seems like a big step. Becoming a partner with a Chinese police state? Yes. And yet, once again, this fact received virtually no coverage in the United States. Apple's decision to side with the oppressors over the oppressed, Apple's decision to actively help America's enemies, to hurt ordinary people seeking freedom, it just wasn't news in the view of the New York Times.
Anyway, he goes on for 12 minutes on this, but it's fantastic part. Go check it out on YouTube. Did we lose Rick?
Ricky.
But that's what's coming to a theater near you. He talks about, I mean, that's great. Recently, you look at that, they talk about China. Was it the Fatima message of Russia spread its errors? They had what they do in Canada. They shut people down from communicating. They took their money away. They couldn't access bank accounts. What they do in the United States, they shut down communications. What do you do on censorship? They shut down communications. Why they keep you inside? You can't talk to anybody. Rick?
Yeah, exactly. The whole thing is that this started at Foxconn, ironically enough, at Apple. because they decided to use the QR codes that Steve talked about with their national passports. Everybody's went red. And it was like, all right, everybody's got COVID and the whole thing's shutting down. And I guess this was the last straw that the Chinese people are like, we're done with this. And they started having protests there, and it started sprawling out. And then there was an apartment fire. And the reason that this was a big deal is because this is when Apple had restricted the airdropping for the protest at Foxconn. So a number of people died in this apartment fire. And this thing has continued to spiral out of control for them to the point where, the censorship has come down pretty hard, where they got the drones flying out saying, stay in your homes and all these other kinds of things. And it really is, it's a test, Steve and Fawaz, of technology versus the human will. And if the people in China at this point, and I'll throw it to Fawaz, are pushing back, that's a pretty big statement, because they're the ones that have been the test subjects. They're the ones that Elon Musk and all of these other people have said, that's the perfect society. That's the society we have to mimic. And to see them finally push back, because even California, New York, these places have had some pretty difficult lockdowns. China's never stopped. It's been March 2020 for them for 2+ years. And the human will can only take so much, Fawaz.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a breaking point for everybody. I just think that the breaking point should have been a long time ago. But because we're so weak, primarily because of this whole technology, it was supposed to make our lives a lot easier. And turns out that when you make human beings' life easier, you create weak men. And we all know what that does. It creates harder times because we become enslaved to ourselves. Only and only does the regime or those who are in power, when they push a little bit too far, you start to rise up and say, oh, we've had enough. But the problem is now you are fighting within their system. So because you're fighting within their system, it's easier for them to shut you down. You can't talk to each other. And like Steve was bringing it up, they kept us home so we don't talk to each other. They also kept us home to get us used to working from home. Real estate for businesses, they lost so much money, and guess who came in and swooped it up? BlackRock came in and bought it for like a penny to a dollar. So they're really trying to take over all of these aspects of our of life, because ultimately they want, number one, zero carbon footprint, which means they want almost no human beings on Earth because it's harder to control 8 billion people. And then again, it's not a flawless system. It's not like, oh, they could be making some mistakes here and there. These protests, it could fall into their hands. It could be great for them. It says, oh, everybody's protesting. Let's bring out the drones and the military and the robots. If they're in the market right now, let's clean up the streets. So that gives them a chance to further. And then when someone says that this is not fair, they'll say, well, you just got to do what we tell you to do, and then everything will be fine. So it could play in their hands. We'll see what happens. But I don't see the world rising up, because we still have our head buried in the sand, and we still think that, oh, this is just going to go away. People are still saying, if just only enough people get vaccinated, we can go back to normal. And like, it's been 2 years, and you're still talking. This is still your narrative. It's like Sheen said it best. Fulton Sheen one time said, "Only those who have faith will understand what goes on in the end. What's happening in the world. Those who've lost faith, those who are secular, will not understand what's going on." And mainly because we have prophecies, we have understanding of who the enemy is and what he's capable of doing. And when you have world leaders across the world who are literally doing the will, perfect possession, I guess you could say, of the enemy, eventually people will rise up. But I don't know if it's going to be a Cinderella story that we think it's going to be. I think it's going to be, it might even be Rocky, to where he's, we'll get the victory, but we're unrecognizable because our face is bruised up.
Absolutely. Well said, Fawaz. Steve, this is just, that China has been the test case, has been the example. It has been everything that those who want this established here. So it's interesting to see the resistance being pushed back and not being, because China's been told, we've been told by everybody that China has this great military and has all this other kind of stuff and this, that, and the other thing, and they don't have any restrictions or any kind of restraint on just absolutely massacring their people to get things done. So the fact that even with that threat, they're still pushing back. What is your take on all this?
I think they want them to push back. They want the resistance. So they want that. It's kind of like playing in their hands. Just like that article about people going out. I was listening to another podcast. They were talking about solutions to this thing. And he goes, well, if we go off the grid and we leave everything, we stop, we live in those cities outside, say like, I'll use Fawaz, for example, because he's out there. So say like Fawaz, for example, can't drive his car because there's no gas and he can't go fill up. And so it's just sitting there and he can only has to do is walk and drive around, ride a bike or whatever around the area. It's kind of, and be like, all right, I got it. I'm sticking it to them. They don't care about, you're actually doing what they want you to do, is not travel, not drive, not use food, not do this. They don't want us in any of these products anyways. That's why they're already making it harder and harder. And the plan is to get people out of it. So even if we detach and say, you know what, I'm going to beat them to the punch, you're doing their work for them. The rise up part, these guys doing the protests and all this, I think they're playing into their hands because what's next? Martial law. So they can come in, lockdown, massive lockdowns, brutal lockdowns, or violence on there. Again, here it goes to this stuff.
Let's defuse bombs. They gave police a closer look at an active crime scene. And now?
It passes unanimously.
San Francisco's police force will have the ability to use them as potential lethal force options. But that decision wasn't made lightly. We heard passionate arguments and clarifications coming from both sides.
Of course, I don't want any officer to lose their life, but I think that this is that the scenarios that we're using are hypotheticals to.
I mean, her argument should literally just be, haven't you seen Terminator?
I guess the video's not working. Every time I hit something, it doesn't work. What's the deal here?
They're coming after you, buddy. Skynet's found you.
Speaking of Skynet, MIT researchers creating robots that give birth to other robots.
Oh, congratulations!
This just in. Planned Parenthood now has abortion for robots.
Right. So they're going with RoboCop. You have 20 seconds to comply.
Here's the thing: we all thought it was going to be the big one with like the giant turret guns, and it's just like Robbie the delivery robot's got missiles now.
But look at your local cops are basically militarized.
Yep.
See what's happened overseas in the last couple with the violence they've been doing over just this. I mean, from Australia to all places of Europe.
Well, we had it here too, Steve.
Had it here, not as bad, but here.
Well,
as I'm talking about violence-wise. I mean,
the example was in Midland, Texas, when they had the APC and the armored vehicle guys. I mean, it was the joke because it was these fat guys in these little like kits, rolling up on a couple guys drinking at a bar. I mean, in Midland, Texas, Midland, Texas is not a dangerous place for these people. They have APCs. They have all this military tech too.
You saw most of the stuff coming out like Europe with the high velocity water guns shooting off people that were just on the street. Yeah. The beaches, the arrests, the drones in Ireland, all that stuff. I mean, it wasn't as bad. It was bad, but it was as bad here in these United States than it was over in other places, which I don't know. When you see this tech rising, and I remember getting a guy in Uber that talked about, I wish we could disinvent a lot of stuff. They'll use the drones. They'll use this. They already spying. They already know what we're listening to and watching the AI on here. It's just a matter of time before they do something to you, knock down your cell, knock down your tech. I mean, I don't know if we're getting, usually this works fine, and I can't click anything for it right now to work. And this is a brand new computer that somebody's brought me. It's down the road. You're not going to get what you're using. You better enjoy what you're at right now, because maybe a year or two down the road, you're not going to be able to pay for things. You're not going to be able to do what you're doing right now. You better have some you have to be some gratitude and enjoy what you have before it goes into the Well, as the lady said, maybe 19th century. I mean, think about living without electricity. Maybe start practicing that because Rick's got snow. He's in a snowstorm right now.
That's right.
If he puts the wrong social credit and wrong post up or it does his radio show, I don't think he's going to have a high social credit score for it.
Right.
Oh, my social credit score, it's going to be it's going to be about as high as the view count on Fawaz's video on my interview. It's going to be very low. Please go watch it. But
at least that's higher than my IQ, so that's good.
Well, let's not get into that because I don't know if I don't want to be a winner on all things. But you're right on that, Steve. It is, they've gotten everybody, and Fawaz mentioned it. We have become so used to the convenience of life with everything that it is just easier to pull the rug out. Because when you do that, people are like, no. What do you need? What do you want me to do? I'll do it. That's fine. Just give me the convenience back. Give me all that back.
There's actually a video of a Chinese lady. I thought about looking it up until you said it. And I didn't think about it until you said it. She got a red thing though because they turned off all their QR codes or whatever happened. And she went begging to the government, please, I will do whatever you want. Please turn it back on so I can buy. I think it was buy groceries or something. She went begging to the authorities to do this. Eventually, that will be here. If you couldn't say no to the mask, how in the wide world of sports are you going to be able to say no to this?
100%. That's what they want. That's what they want. And that's what they got with COVID too. Because you were right. How many people lined up this year for their 7th or 8th or 9th booster shot? Fauci went on TV 2 weeks ago. Said, go get your COVID booster for Thanksgiving. How many people do you think actually ran out and did it?
A good amount, probably. I saw a podcast today, guys. The 13% have taken the new ones. He goes, those are the dumbest people on the planet that did that. Those are the 13% of the worst of the planet.
70% of the world population has had at least one dose. The world population, 70%.
Yeah, it's dropped off since then. But yeah, they're that's why Pfizer ended up having a big problem with having over too many of them. They had to give them away, and they were upset about that whole situation. But yeah, no, they're still going to be. There's more commercials on TV. They talk about a holiday commercial. Oh, we've upgraded the ingredients. This is a better version for you.
The ingredients. It's like a chef. new ingredients in there, buddy. Now with new flavors, you can get it. You can get your peppermint flavored booster if you need it. But let's take a look since you guys are talking about that. I talked about this on speaking of my radio show today. This is something that Google is going to introduce. And by the way, let me say this at the beginning. This will be integrated into Chrome, Brave, Safari, on your iPhones, on your Google. They will put this as an attachment. I don't know how you guys, but you just you put it into your browser history. This is called behavioral interventions. So Steve, if you go down a little bit, there's actually a link to the website down a little bit more. Go up. Now I feel like I'm giving directions. Go up a little bit more. Right there. See, it says a site. Click on that. That's the actual website that will tell you. There are 4 distinct ones. So go left, start scrolling. So the first one is accuracy prompt, which means that it will give you a pop-up when you're doing something to say, are you sure that you want to do this? Are you sure that you actually want to continue to view this?
Right.
The goal of this. And then if you want to go to the next one, Steve, because I'll look at it here so I don't have to look like a
Twitter does that right now.
Yeah. Think about the COVID-19 misinformation warnings. This is that on steroids. So the next one is redirect, which means it's aimed at reaching individuals who are vulnerable to recruiting by extremist groups. Now they say ISIS in this messaging, but what has DHS been saying? Who are the extremist groups?
Parents.
Yeah, exactly. Catholics, people who have Gadsden flags. This will pop up. It will redirect you to something that says, white Christian nationals are currently on the DHS watch list. This will be integrated into your browser. It will pop up without your consent. Next one, Steve. Authorship feedback. It's a prospective API. It's a tool that uses artificial intelligence to detect toxic language. This is why they got to control what is toxic and what it isn't, redefining gender, redefining words. That's why they need control of the language. Once again, this will pop up without your consent when it detects it. Steve was talking about they know all this stuff already. They're going to use it. And then finally, pre-bunking. This is pre-internet, pre-thought crime. Pre-bunking is a technique to prevent manipulation attempts online by forewarning individuals and equipping them to refute misleading arguments. And the crazy thing is, this was done. This isn't for Steve, Fawaz, and myself, and for you. This is for your kids in public school. This is for your grandkids. This is when your kids go to college, like at MIT, where this was done. And it's at the bottom of that article. They did it at MIT. Those who received accuracy tips were 50% more discerning in sharing habits versus those who did not. You know where else they did? They pre-rolled these videos on YouTube, and that drove up an 11% increase in confidence. So this stuff is going to get dropped in on your next update or your next computer, Steve, or whatever, and you're going to be typing out a tweet, or you're going to be looking at a video, or you're going to be watching this show, and these windows are going to get popped up, or your video is going to get redirected. And nobody, I didn't even hear about this till this morning. And this is going to drop right down, Fawaz, and it is yet another way to control whatever you want to call free speech.
Yeah, there's only one way out of this. Get your kids out of public school. Shut off your phones. They're powerless now. They have nothing they can do, because everything is going to be based on your phone, digital currency. Everything is going to be based on apps. Shut off your phone. You take your kids out of public school. If we had the will to do that, it's over. They lose. We win. But everyone is just so entrenched and addicted to the very system that is literally turned against us. If you remember the movie Man for All Seasons, when it was Saint was it Charles played the actor as this Thomas More. He was talking to Rupert, and he said, you know, this is a bad man. Go after him. He says he's broken no law. And then he says, well, you know, I would go after him. He said, I would break down every law to get the devil. And then Thomas More says, well, when every single law has been flattened and the devil turns around on you, where are you gonna run to? You have nothing to protect you. So the very system in which that we thought were going to free us is a very system that has enslaved us. And now we're trying to fight this system by their own system. You got to shut off the system, and you got to get away from it. Unfortunately, not enough people even know that they need to do that, let alone have the willpower to do it. We're still dropping kids off public school, even though the fact that they're blatantly satanic in a lot of these classrooms. Blatant. But guess what? They don't care, because as long as I have my 2-story house and I live in my community, my wife is working and I'm working, and the babysitter is making the money, and we're getting our wine and our food. As long as we're doing all that, we're okay. Keep sending the kids to public schools. And I think what you said is very important, Rick. You talked about, I mean, look what happened in New York. You know, Mayor Adams just put into law that they're going to taking people who they deem to be mentally ill. That's a start. That's a Trojan horse, like everything else is. What was it? The Inflation Reduction Act, Trojan horse. The whole same-sex act that they're doing, Trojan horse. It's all about it being a different name so they can push it in. So then that way they can implement what they want after it's in the law, like they care about the law. But I will say this: if they're going to lock people in their house because they're mentally ill, what's stopping them from saying, you don't think the way that we do, therefore you're mentally ill? So we're going to lock you in the house, and this law is going to protect us from doing so. So no judge is going to, judge against us. And 100 years ago, the disposition of man was such that we understood the natural law, because the church was doing what it was supposed to do in forming conscience. What happened was, throughout the years, when the church kind of dropped the ball, I would say, the disposition of man started to change, and now man's thought went away from natural law to the unnatural law. So now the normality is the unnatural law, and those who are, adherent to the natural law, they're the ones who are now crazy. So the disposition of society has changed. Now we're the mentally ill ones, according to their eyes, even though it's not even possible, because according to the natural law, to objective or even reason, you would say we're the sane ones, they're the insane ones, but they don't see it that way. So they're going to use that law and all the other laws that they're putting together and all their systems to deem you and I insane.
100%. Well said. Steve, this goes right hand in hand with everything else. You just said it, they already have wiretaps and all the cable and all that other stuff. They're already watching all this. Now they're coming up and they use COVID and all this other stuff to redefine language, which they've been doing for 20 years through colleges and so forth, which is why it's a big deal about, one of the Supreme Court justices can't define what a woman is because that language has been, now redefined and put this one way or another, and everything is confusing. So that way they can come in and say, yes, here we can clear up the confusion from what your official government sources. Remember Jacinto or whatever her name is in New Zealand, which she said, only trust what we say,
right,
not anything else. So that's it's all perfectly coming together in that regard.
We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens, because in the coming generations, we will learn how to engineer bodies and brains and minds. Now, how exactly will the future masters of the planet look like? This will be decided by the people who own the data. Now, why is data so important? It's important because we've reached the point when we can hack not just computers, we can hack human beings and other organisms. Now, what do you need in order to hack a human being? You need two things. You need a lot of computing power, and you need a lot of data, especially biometric data. But control of data might enable human elites to do something even more radical than just build digital dictatorships. By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of life itself. Because once you can hack something, you can usually also engineer it. All of life, for 4 billion years, dinosaurs, amoebas, tomatoes, humans, all of life was subject to the laws of natural selection and to the laws of organic biochemistry. But this is now about to change. Science is replacing evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design.
Therefore,
not the intelligent design of some god above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds, the IBM cloud, the Microsoft cloud. These are the new driving forces of evolution. And at the same time, science may enable life after being confined for 4 billion years to the limited realm of organic compounds. Science may enable life to break out into the inorganic realm. Humans are now hackable animals. The whole idea that humans have, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over. Free will, that's over.
That's over.
Over. Today, we have the technology to hack human beings on a massive scale. Yeah, everything is being digitalized. Everything is being monitored. In this time of crisis, you have to follow science. It's often said that you should never allow a good crisis to go to waste, because a crisis is an opportunity to also do good reforms that in normal times people will never agree to. But in a crisis, you see, we have no chance. So let's do it.
Vaccine won't help us go
the
to
vaccine
the test, of course.
Will help us, of course. It will make things, more manageable.
Surveillance, people could look back in 100 years and identify the coronavirus epidemic as the moment when a new regime of surveillance took over, especially surveillance under the skin, which I think is maybe the most important development of the 21st century, is this ability to hack human beings, to go under the skin, collect biometric data, analyze it, and understand people better than they understand themselves. This, I believe, is maybe the most important event of the 21st century. By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of life itself. Because once you can hack something, you can usually also engineer it.
Natural selection is replaced by
he even brings up in another one. I was hoping that was it. I got so many clips of him. I was just picked one that maybe he talks about being you're hearing your politician talk, and maybe he says something that gets you outraged a little bit, and they can tell if you get mad or not.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes back to all this social credit score. Hey, here's that TikTok or not TikTok, Facebook thing.
Yep, there it is, perfectly lined up. She's on mute.
Claiming that our PSO violated the rights of a Forest Hill man when they arrested him over a Facebook post during the height of the pandemic. Bennett Rowland Jr. is in the studio with more on this case, and that court filing. Bennett.
Bro, Waylon Bailey was arrested in March of 2020 after he posted a Facebook post that claimed that the sheriff's office would, quote, shoot on sight those infected with COVID-19. He compared the situation to a zombie apocalypse. Our PSO booked Bailey on account of terrorism, but the Rapides Parish District Attorney's Office didn't move forward with the case. ACLU claims that few people saw the post. It was a joke, but the sheriff's office stormed Bailey at his home to make the arrest. Bailey filed a lawsuit against the sheriff's office, and
they had a SWAT showed up to his house.
Actually, very dangerous. Because once you say about any holy text, by the way,
do what?
Was he getting swatted, or just SWAT showed up for?
But you guys already brought up this one. That was good because I was trying to tie it all into this. The landmark same-sex marriage bill went in Senate passage. They're voting in the House, I think, in 3 days, maybe next week, I think it is. And this will make the SSM bill or idea federal from C to signing C, eliminates federalism, turns it into nationalism. There's nowhere in the Constitution the government, the federal government, a centralized regime needs to control this, but it's happening. What I've been telling everybody, what's the best way to get out of this? You divorce from DC. It kills that bill. Nobody wants to do that, obviously. So you're going to see priests go to jail. Here's something in England.
Potentially very dangerous, because once you say about any holy text, by the way, that it might be too offensive to read, too offensive to show in public, that means its followers are the same, and that leads to religious oppression.
I don't think it would be said about any religious text. I think there are certain religious texts it would never be said about. Father Ashington, it's the most scandalous story ever told. Of course it's supposed to be jarring. Of course it's supposed to be offensive at times and challenging. What would have happened, do you think, if the CPS won?
Well, I think both you and Michael are right. This wouldn't happen to another sacred text. It wouldn't happen to Hinduism, and it certainly wouldn't happen to Islam. And so I think what we need to take away from that is that this is a war on Christian culture.
If that bill goes through, the arrested people for a Facebook post. You don't think they're going to arrest somebody on a federal charge? What did Biden do a couple months ago? You're a domestic terrorist. Everyone's a domestic terrorist. You don't agree with us, you are an enemy. He basically told 70% of the population in these United States, you're an enemy if you don't agree with them. Guess who's going to jail when they start preaching on this? They're going to go after you because somebody's going to rat on them. What happened during the lockdowns when parishes were open? You had rats. You had people going up to the government and tell them, "Oh, Our Lady here, they stayed open. They opened up here. They were open up here. Place down the street from me, father would be like 10 people. Wink, allowed. Nope, somebody ratted on him. So you already got rats out there. It's almost you can't trust your neighbor in a sense, which again they want you to do. And then what's going to happen when father speaks on natural law, the women and man in matrimony, that SSM can't be held. They will be thrown. The gulag, they'll be thrown in the gulag. It's the Gulag Archipelago coming to real life in here. They'll be thrown up in Siberia, wherever you want to call it. Again, call me nuts. Wait till that happens.
Well, Steve, I think it's going to be quicker than that. As soon as it gets signed into law, you're going to have pre-positioned same-sex couples walking into random churches throughout these United States. Time to marry us.
Yep,
They'll target Latin masses first, probably. I wouldn't even see certain bishops in certain cities in conjunction working with them to be like, oh yeah, that Latin mass down the street, yeah, why don't you go check that one out first and make them marry you. And when you don't, we'll have the IRS roll in and they'll rip back the 501c3, shut them down, call it a day.
Again, that's what I said. If you want this in, the only way out of this one is breaking away from the U.S. tyrannical regime government.
Right.
I know people don't want to do it. They USA. Hey, we got the World Cup out there. We beat Iran. Imagine if South Carolina had a World Cup team. Do you think you care about that a little bit more than the entire United States? I don't know anybody that's on that team. Don't care.
They would suck.
First of all, they'd be terrible.
It would. Texas would probably have a better team, but at least you're like, hey, Texas is out there beating Iran. You don't have the entire continent play. Why don't the European Union get a team together? That'd be the dream team right there of soccer. But because what do you need the 50 stars on it? Is there some devotion you have? That devotion is going to land you in jail.
All right, Waz, jump in.
No, I mean, I was just going to say that they purposefully went after religious bakers because they knew that they were going to cause some trouble. They could have gone to any baker they wanted to. That this is how they are. Sometimes they're vengeful. I'm not going to generalize all of them together, but there's some individuals that are going to be vengeful. They hate the church, and because of what they stand for, and they're going to attack the Catholic Church like they always do. And this bill is an issue. Again, it's another Trojan horse. There's what people don't understand, and the people are like, oh well, Romney voted for it, and he's a Mormon, so therefore it must be okay. Romney doesn't care about Mormonism. He doesn't care. He has allegiance
Mormons are more than happy
to globalism, not Mormonism. So that's all I got to say.
Although the Mormons are totally cool with this bill.
Yeah, the Mormons are more. They came out in favor of it.
Yeah,
they're more than happy to play along.
Myth Brains is with them, and so they're all for
it. Well, they evolve. First you couldn't let black people into Mormonism, then they can let them back in. Now it's gay. So they're ever evolving.
That's right. That's right. Well, I mean, that's what happens, and then we'll just leave it at that. We'll just leave it at that before you get any worse. So, Steve, I know we got a couple videos left. If you want to, do we have the TikTok one?
Social media rot as pervasive as it is on TikTok. Beyond the societal harm we referenced in the angle, there are national security implications as well.
If my kid was on TikTok, they'd have his social security number, they'd know what his face looked like, they'd know who his friends were. They're using this data in ways that will come back to haunt the United States of America for years and years and years.
Yeah. All of that data that your child is inputting and receiving is being stored somewhere in Beijing.
Back end of TikTok really is a Trojan horse on your phone. That is a real risk for America's families and America's kids.
My next guest has referenced TikTok as a weapon, likening it to digital fentanyl. Joining me now.
Well, that's what you said about things too, and that's what Twitter and Facebook is.
Well, I mean, real quick, I'll say it again. The TikTok to porn pipeline is tried and true, with a little bit of OnlyFans in the middle, because they get these young girls to start gyrating and they get paid for it when they're underage, by the way. Then they become 18, they jump onto OnlyFans and they make money that way, prostituting themselves. And when they get too old for that, then they get pastured out to the pornography industry and the mental health toll that it's taking on young girls and the destruction of the relationships between men and women, because men have this, they're, just like porn, it's porn, and what porn does to male brains, it's just destroying young men and destroying and fraying relationships. I've been screaming about TikTok and how TikTok needs to be banned. In a right Christian society, TikTok would be nowhere near anybody's cell phone. But unfortunately, we have to deal with it because, the wine mom at home has to make sure she does her reels talking about how funny it is that it's Christmas time and I get to drink my Christmas wine. And so it's ridiculous.
I'm going to start a cooking show. I'm going to call it Only Pans. It's going to be great.
That would be awesome. That would be fantastic. But it's that dopamine. It's the dopamine hit, Fwaz, that they get kids hooked onto young, and it's part of the process of reeling them into the technocracy.
Yeah, well, it's. I mean, think about it. The reason why people would accept Neuralink or something like Neuralink, it's because the whole process of getting us used to it, it's already there. It's like, first of all, phones were outside of us, and then phones got into our pocket. Then we started wearing phones in our wrist, and then it's like, okay, now they just want to put it inside my skin. That's no problem. So, from the very beginning, you don't have a fourth industrial revolution without the third. It's just a natural progression. Once you crack that window open, things are going to come in. It's a natural progression. So, you went from emailing to AOL, chatting, and Reddit, all that stuff, the internet, and now TikTok. So they'll just accept it because it's just a natural progression. It's like the frog in the pot. They didn't hit us with it all at once. They slowly introduced it to now it's okay because if I can wear it outside my wrist, what is it if it's a little bit under my wrist, under my skin? What's the big deal? So that's how they get to. But don't forget, the human brain is very formidable. It's like a sponge. You can shape it. This is why the church has been doing such a good job, in the past years, of forming the conscience to understand how our relationship is to reality. It's like a relationship to food. We have the fasting and temperance, our relationship to sex and chastity and obedience to abstinence. So all of these things that the church has put in have really just been thrown out the window. And it seems to me when the church dropped the ball, the world picked it up and said, here's an unnatural church that we're going to run with, and everybody has to be in it. And all of us were like, well, it's not really different from what I'm used to now, so whatever, we'll take it.
Exactly. Steve, any thoughts on the TikTok and the fact that now they're finally starting to catch up to the fact it's a national security. It's a security threat in more ways than one because of the Chinese component, the fact that it's addictive, the fact it's destroying attention spans. Take your pick, Steve. What's your problem with TikTok?
I've never used TikTok, and I rarely see it. But I know exactly what you guys are talking about. But what Fawaz talked about was,
I just don't understand how it gets to the point where
things get to terrible places one tiny step at a time. If I encroach on you and I'm sophisticated about it, I'm going to encroach 2 millimeters. I'm going to encroach right to the point where you start to protest. Then I'm going to stop. Then I'm going to wait. Then you're going to calm down. Then I'm going to encroach again right to the point where you protest. Then I'm going to stop. Then I'm going to wait. And I'm just going to do that forever. And before you know it, you're going to be back 3 miles from where you started.
We are right there. We keep getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And half the people don't care because it's bread and circus. They're watching that and football. They're caring about college football all day long. No one cares about what's going on to their livelihoods or what their future is going to look like. They look at the next technological thing. Well, we're so detached from, you talked about Christmas. How many people even think what the reason why Christmas even exists? It started in mid-November. Some places even earlier. It's December 1st. And I don't want to say I'm tired of Christmas, but we've already had Christmas down, already had the parade, already had the 5K run. 3 places I know of in this area have parades. They've been putting lights up for 2 weeks. We're not even celebrating just even people around you, Christians aren't even celebrating. They're skipping the penance and going right to the party. And when the party's over, they're throwing it out, going to the next party, New Year's Eve, and then going to the next part. We have divorced so far from God. It's unreal. And it's good. It's communism on a global scale, obviously. Technocracy is on a global scale. It's going to get worse. And what we need to do is to divorce ourselves, not just from the feds, but from society in general, in that sense, in the sense of, all right, everyone else is celebrating Christmas right now. I'm going to do Advent. Be that person, live the liturgical year. I know people are going to say, have joy. Yes, have joy anyways. Sing, O come, Emmanuel. Teach others why you are doing penance so that when you're doing this, everyone else is going, oh, what's that weird guy doing? Not to be doom and gloom and go, hey, you, look at you. No, for everyone else. If we're going to change it, we got to start with ourselves. The man in the mirror, focus on that. Everyone else is partying. You do the penance. And then maybe somebody else does it. Maybe I was talking to a friend of ours about the St. Martin's Lent. He goes, maybe next year, because even my wife brought up, how do you bring that back? Well, if somebody else starts doing what we're doing, that's 2 people. And maybe their friends see it. That's 3, 4, and 5. Maybe down the road we got 10 or 20 people doing it. And now we're growing and growing and growing. It's not going to happen like that overnight. It's like people ask me all the time, how do you get to 100,000 subscribers next week? It doesn't happen just because you will. You got to put some effort into it. And with us, what we got to do, we got to put some massive effort into converting the society, converting our neighbors, converting the world. How you do it? Well, convert your neighborhood first. We'll convert your house. Starts with your house. Do everything you can. Just like I was reading one book about prayer. Obviously, it says that people say they have no time. And it's just an excuse. How much time throughout the day? How many videos you watching? Go on your iPhone and check out how much screen time you're doing. Do you not have 15 minutes to sacrifice for mental prayer or a rosary or any kind of anything else? Ejaculations, reading good books. Are we reading more?
St. Andrew Chaplet. St. Andrew Chaplet.
Anything. Yeah, you got so much you could do right now. Getting your mind ready for reading Garanger again for Evan. It's not that long. His daily meditations for this week, for this month, is not long. It takes literally 3 minutes for an audio for it. But yeah, I mean, what is our goal? Where's our priorities intact? Is it heavenly found or down here? Yes, if they take everything away and you're still focused on it's divine providence. I forget the name of the book. Father Jean Marie, I think, writes it. If they take everything away from you, just like Job, all right, do you say Deo Gracias or you go cry in the corner? Are you more connected here? They could take away our food, they could take away our gas, they could take away our cars, but they can't take away salvation.
Beware. What is the quote? Beware. Don't be scared of the ones that destroy the body. Beware of ones that kill the soul.
Yeah.
Right.
That's really the mindset. Yes, as I butcher the line, but y'all.
It's gonna get dark. It's gonna get. You see what we're posting. There's darker stuff. It's gonna get dark, but we should have joy. With 3 cheers for joy, and it's gonna get dark. Enjoy it. Embrace the suck.
It's gonna get dark, but at the end of this month, at the end of Advent, we do have the light coming in. We have to focus on that. We have to celebrate the fact that the light comes into the world. We have to keep our minds focused on that through all the noise, and just continue to push on. And be happy with every bit of pain you deal with is a sacrifice you can offer up for the suffering souls of purgatory. You can offer it up for reparations. That's the good thing. Like, I'm starting to get older and things are starting to hurt more. And I'm like, okay, this is good. So now I have more stuff to offer up every morning when I sound like a skeleton getting out of bed and everything's cracking. Like it's all offered up. But
because you're not you can't change everything right now. You got to be able to do what you're doing and do it well.
Yeah. Focus on your home and your family. If everybody focused on their home and their family and got the order right there, like Flowers was saying with the family and the roles, the husband, the wife, once that gets out, that's what changes society. You not trying to change society is going to be terrible. You trying to change your home, getting that right, that's the best first step.
Right.
Flaws, Saint and Cry Room if you got them.
I do have a cry room. I had a hard time coming up with a saint, to be honest with you. Saint of the week regarding, as far as someone. I mean, I could throw some. I'll throw what's her name on it? Anthony and Rob of Avoiding Babylon. Only reason I'll throw those 2 guys out there only because I just love the fact that they started a YouTube channel. It's literally just based on unity among the Catholics, because Twitter does get a little bit dark, and they seem to bring a lot of circles together, and just lighthearted discussion and just to hang out. Kind of it's like the YouTube channel for in the Catholic community. So I give them props for that as well. So my cry room. There's so many this last couple of weeks. There's so many. But I'm going to go with a fun one. I'm going to go with Alyssa Milano, because if you're going to complain that Tesla is that Twitter is now owned by a white supremacist, so you give up your Tesla to go get what she got? She got a Volkswagen, right? A VW, and that's which was literally created by a white supremacist. So I'm going to go with her.
Excellent. Yep, those work. Those work real well. Steve, what do you got?
I'm going to go with Saint of the Week again. We're going to use Father Abernathy again because I am still getting emails and messages saying was getting promoted, been sharing his links, putting his stuff up on the channel. And a lot of people have been turned on to the St. John Climacus series and even have John Cassian conferences, the conferences of Cassian he does. And every time I look at something of his, I'm just going, this is doggone amazing. He's got one on the introduction to Philokalia. I'm going, this is when he was at the St. Philip Neri Institute, and I was just blown away with it. So there's a lot of people being greatly turned on by his lessons and his Lectio Divinae in the sense of his going through the great Eastern writers, Eastern Catholic writers. Those are our boys, as he says, they're ours. The Climacus was before the schism. And anyways, in my what do we call it, the cry room, I'm gonna go with the slapper, Big Willie style. He's doing a movie called Emancipation.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm sure it's going to be terrible. Are you going? Do you have to go to that one, Rick?
I haven't. That's on Apple. That'll be on Apple TV Plus. So if I want to put myself through it, I will. But yeah, I don't know. I probably won't. My cry room is Sam Bankman-Fried, the guy who stole everybody's money and looks like a 5-year-old. So that's an easy one. My saint of the week is the coach of the Boston Celtics. Steve, I sent you the audio. Let's play it.
What did he say?
He said something good.
Basketball question. Well, did you get a chance to meet with the royal family? And if not, how was it like having them there in the building?
Jesus, Mary, and Joseph?
The Prince and Princess of Wales.
Oh, no, I did not. I'm only familiar with one royal family. I don't know too much about that one.
By the way, Rhode Island's own. He is from the head coach of the Boston Celtics is from Rhode Island. So big ups to Rhode Island. We actually did something good on that one. So that's what I'm talking about there.
I mean, you look now. I know I crush on sports a lot, but you look at the Notre Dame coach. He's got got the mask back for Notre Dame guys and converted. The Celtic head coach. There's some studs out there.
You notice Boston Celtics, Notre Dame. That's what they're all Irish. That's what I'm talking about, baby. It's all the Irish.
The old saying, what good comes out of Nazareth? So they say, what good comes out of Rhode Island? So it's the same thing.
Two, me and that guy. So there you go. That's it there. All right, folks. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. For Fawaz and Steve, this is the News from the Pew. Like, subscribe, and share the News from the Pew. We hope you have a good week. We'll see you soon. And now, always and forever, Viva Cristo Rey.
How dare you!